Stand by.
Philly's best R&B and throwbacks to 105.3 WDAS, home of the Holiday Jam, happening Saturday, December 22nd. It's going to be at the Met Philly. Tickets online right now at WDASFM.com. Frankie Darcell with you. It's good to have in the studio with me. Let me first welcome Mr. Andrew Wyatt and also Miss Ebonee Benson, both with the PR firm, Purpose PR firm, who are representing Mr. Bill Cosby. And if I can, respectfully, the description, Miss Benson, can I call you Ebonee? Ebonee read Miss Cosby's statement on the day of sentencing this week, and Mr. Wyatt, you were seen throughout the first and second trial,
Correct.
Walking with Mr. Cosby so that people can put a face with the names. Sentenced 3 to 10 years. Mr. Cosby, you guys both had some very strong statements after the sentencing, if you can, because they're going to be my guests. The phone lines are open if you'd like to ask questions. They have been graceful enough to take your questions as well. 215-263-1053, 877-894-1053. Let me start with you, okay, Mr. Wyatt. If you can, and we're going to continue, you're going to be my guest throughout the show. Your comments about the sentencing and what you felt was unfair.
Well, I said that this was the most racist and sexist trial that we have seen in the history of the United States. It was unfair because this district attorney, Kevin Steele, ran a Willie Horton style campaign ad saying, if you elect me, I will bring Bill Cosby to justice. This had nothing to do with justice. This had everything to do with advancing someone's political career and aspirations. Along with Judge O'Neill, this judge and his wife is a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and she was responsible for getting Mr. Cosby's honorary degrees rescinded. He helped her work on her dissertation where she thanked him on sexual assault. Everyone was complicit. This was a conspiracy to take down a legend, an icon, and destroy his legacy. And that's why we're here on your show, and we're happy to be here with you, Frankie, and 105.3, your listening audience, and our Heart Media family. Thank you for having us.
Great, absolutely. And Ms. Benson, you read the statement from Ms. Camille Cosby. A lot of people, have conversations about women who stand by their man, but you read that statement from Ms. Cosby.
Absolutely. Mrs. Cosby has been at the backbone of this from the very beginning. She does stand by her man because she knows her man is innocent. This trial was hugely affected by public opinion. Public opinion and the media can hugely affect someone's due process. Mr. Cosby's due process was not given to him, and that's why we feel so strongly about this. This had to do, as Andrew said, with a political agenda. This also had to do with making money. And this also had to do with ruining someone's legacy.
All right, listen, the phone lines are open, 215-263-1053, 877-894-1053. What people want to know as well, there were two juries, first jury, hung jury. Then there was a second jury. I wanted to get your opinion on that, because although you say that it may be racist, although you say that there was some bias, there were jurors that came up with these decisions. We're going to ask you about that along the way.
Looking forward to it.
On the way, more Philly's best R&B and throwbacks. We're 105.3 WDAS. Great. So you can turn your headphones down. So here's one of the parts as we continue to move with the conversation. So Andrew, and we're still recording, when you talk about that it was racist, I want you to really be clear,
okay,
especially when there was a hung jury in the first trial, decided to re-prosecute, have a second trial, and it was a guilty verdict. There are those that would even question. There were African Americans on this jury who also said that he was guilty. Address those concerns as it relates to what you have said as the racist part.
The racist part of it is that the first trial, you're right, we end up in a hung jury. They deliberated for over 50 plus hours. The judge refused to give them the proper instructions to let the jury know that if you can't not come up with a verdict, you let me know and will be hung. He then took the jury at the first trial. He took them from a big conference room and put them in like solitary confinement. We spoke to some of those jurors. We spoke to the jury foreperson, and she said that they were trying to beat them down. They were becoming angry at each other. They could not eat properly. They were giving them bad meals. Now, this second trial, juror number 11, a white male, he comes before the trial starts. He's in the room with other jurors, and he says, let's vote him guilty. Let's vote him guilty and not take long, and we could get back to our families. We had a special hearing on that with Judge O'Neill. He called this juror in, this white male, who the information was reported to us by a black female. And he asked this juror, did you say these things? He said, I don't recall. Now, the reason why they didn't kick this guy off, they let him stay on because the alternate was a black man who was going to move up. It would have given us 3 black jurors on there. So I do stand by the racist part of it, the way they treated Mr. Cosby, the way they disrespected Mr. Cosby.
Is that in the first and second trial? Or
Both
just
trials, both trials.
And when you say that the way they treated him and disrespected him, what do you mean?
In the first trial, we were before the first trial started in Allegheny County, we were there for jury selection because that's where the jury came from. Instead of letting us use the restroom,
and just for people who may be watching, because we want to get all the specifics, they decided to select a jury from
Montgomery
the Western
County, Montgomery County, which our attorney Tom Mesereau at the time.
The second trial.
The second trial. The first trial, it was from the western part of Allegheny County, which is on the western part of Pennsylvania. You need to turn the headsets
Right.
down.
So
and the western part of the Pennsylvania.
So in Allegheny County, they would not let us use the restroom on the main floor. They took us to the bottom of a dungeon, it looked like, with dirty showers and steps this high. He's blind. We're in a basement. And they would make us go to the restroom in the basement. And one of the sheriffs came back and said, white guy, he said, look, this is just racial what these white people are doing to you guys here. And the sheriff went to the guy, his superior, and he said, no, he should be able to use this restroom on the main level.
And this is Mr. Cosby.
Mr. Cosby.
And before we just take it a little bit further, Frankie, I just want to really hit on that, why we think it's more racial than anything. When you look at, over the years, people who have admitted to sexual assault, you have Stephen Collins, the father from Seventh Heaven. You have Charlie Sheen, who has admitted to giving women HIV. You have Greg Kelly. You have Matt Lauer. You have the president, current sitting president, speaking about grabbing women by their private parts. And no trials, nothing happens with these people. They say, oh, if I did it, I'm sorry. And they step down, and then they go on about their life. The only person convicted, the only person that has been on trial has been a black man, and that black man is Bill Cosby.
Now, we do know that Harvey Weinstein he's next up, if to use a sports analogy.
Right, but look at Harvey. He gets to go freely to his homes. He gets to travel freely to his home. Mr. Cosby could not leave Philadelphia. He could not go to his home in Massachusetts, his 2 homes in New York, his home in L.A. He was not able to go outside the property. Then, for his birthday, a band just comes over and plays 3 songs, and his parole officer shows up the next day and said, you can't let that happen. No one can come play music for you. You cannot show that you're living life. You have to look as if you're depressed and remorseful. Well, why should he be remorseful when he's innocent?
All right. Let's go to the phone line. Let's take one of the first phone calls. This is Mr. Brown on line 3. He is calling from North Philadelphia. Mr. Brown, thank you for your phone call. Say hello to my guests.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
How you doing, Mr. Brown?
And it's so unfortunate that I'm calling, but when are we going to be afforded justice? And we're going to be afforded a jury of our peers. But it seems like people don't understand what's going on. You know? And it was a trial that was largely politically motivated, and it was racially motivated. So when are we going to receive justice? That's
all right.
All I'm
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for your phone call. We're going to go to line 1. Michelle is on line 1, and she is calling from Trenton, New Jersey. Michelle, your question or your comment for my guest?
Yes, my statement first is here we are 50 years past Martin Luther King, and we're still going through discrimination. This is true. My question is, what was Bill Cosby's state of mind at the sentencing?
Jovial. He had put himself in a place where he was at peace. He called me over, and he called Ebonee over, and he said, sit down next to me. He said, this guy is going to put me in the iron box. He said, but that's okay. He said, what I need you all to do is fight, not stop fighting. He said, I sat with MLK. I sat with Malcolm X. He said, I sat in a jail cell with Nelson Mandela, Andrew. He said, I met people who lost their prostates to the dogs biting them in the 60s. Why not Bill Cosby? Because it's so much bigger than me.
All right. No, great. Thank you so much for your phone call. We're going to Greg, who is in East Falls. Let's say hello to Greg. Greg, you are on Talk of the Town. Thank you for your comment and your phone call. Say hello to my guests.
Hey, how you doing there? How both of you doing?
Hi, Greg.
How are you?
Yeah, I just want to say I totally think it was a sham, but I have a question, a direct question for you, and see what you think about this. In the first trial, I understand there were additional witnesses that the judge did not allow. After the hung jury, these same witnesses he allowed, and I thought that was kind of, if they weren't credible in the first trial, why did he allow them to what do you think about him allowing them in the second trial? And it appeared to me that he was trying to set it up to help Kevin Steele. I just want your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. This was a guilty by any means necessary. As you said, in the first trial, they had one additional witness that had nothing to do with the case. The case was Andrea Constand's claims against Mr. Cosby, no one else's. They could not get a slam dunk, so they had to go back. They originally asked for 19 people to come on that had, again, nothing to do with the case. They got 5. You cannot unhear what they said. You can't unsee their faces. So that, again, is highly prejudicial in a court of law. I agree with you, Ms.
And also, when you look at the 404B witnesses, that's what they were called, 404B witnesses. The judge specifically tells the jurors their testimony is not facts. You cannot remember their testimony when you go in to deliberate. They're just here to provide content. Well, as Ebonee just stated, how could you forget when a woman, Janice Dickinson, sits on the witness stand and Tom Mesereau said, did you lie in your book? She said, yeah, it was poetic licensing. In her book, she states, Bill Cosby, I knocked on his door to sleep with him. He blew me off. I took 2 Quaaludes and went to bed and got drunk. That's what she stated in her book. But then she said, I lied because I needed the money. You cannot erase those lines from the jurors' minds. And just to talk about the racist part, the foreperson, who's a female, lived next door to the court reporter, who's the court reporter in the trial. So it was already set up against Mr. Cosby. The setup had already taken place before we even went through the jury selection.
All right, let's go back to the charges themselves. Let's go back. And I just want to make sure I cover a number of things. We're going to go back. When the initial complaint was filed by Andrea Constant, can you talk about that? Can you talk about the conversation with the former prosecutor in Montgomery County, which ultimately resulted in a confidentiality agreement? And after that confidentiality agreement, there was then an election. He then lost the election. Now a new prosecutor is in place. Now the charges. Can you start from there and address the issue, Walt, with your comments, because I wanted you to do it uninterrupted, that there was a settlement with Ms. Constant as a result of that.
$3.8 million settlement with her and a $20,000 settlement with the mother that was paid by American Media, which is the National Enquirer.
And so starting it from the beginning.
Starting it from the beginning, 2004, Andrea Constant waits a year later. In 2005, she files a claim. After consensual relationship, she goes to 3.
And when you say consensual, both she and Mr. Cosby admitted that there was a relationship.
They were seeing each other, and she has this revelation, and she claims after going to a comedy show that he did in Toronto, she went with her mother, her father, and they were hoping to meet with him and have dinner because he had dinner with them once before when he was there. He blew them off this time. The mother had a T-shirt waiting for him. She claims she looked at Andrea and said, "What's wrong, dear?" She was depressed. And then she told them, Bill Cosby sexual assaulted me. And then her brother-in-law is a detective in Canada, in Toronto. They call him up. She files a police report with Durham Police Department. She gives one statement. Then they drive to Philadelphia. She meets with Bruce Castor, then who's the district attorney. She gives him a statement. Then she gives a statement to Montgomery County Police Department detectives. all inconsistencies in the statement. Then Bruce Castor, they record Mr. Cosby. Bruce Castor says in the habeas corpus testimony that we had with him that the tape was not legitimate. So he encouraged them to go into a settlement. He said, look, I'm not going to be able to charge him because her story don't match up with the relationship. Mr. Cosby came in willingly, brought the supplements, the herbs, and the Benadryl that he gave her, and said, hey, I only gave her a pill and a half of Benadryl because she said that she couldn't sleep, she had a headache. That's it. And she was on the phone the entire time. She never went to sleep. So Bruce Castor said, there's no way I could bring charges against Bill Cosby because her stories don't match up to the alleged allegation.
And there's no evidence.
And no evidence at all.
And then at that point, the district attorney, Bruce Castor, decides that he makes a promise to Mr. Cosby he'll never prosecute him if he decides to waive his Fifth Amendment right and sits down for a deposition. This is the deposition that the media relies heavily on when they say he admitted to giving women drugs to sleep with them and have sex with them. That's not what he said. No sensible human would waive their Fifth Amendment right knowing that they would eventually be prosecuted for anything that they said. That promise to Mr. Cosby led him to that deposition, a sealed deposition, sealed testimony, dealing with the civil case where Andrea Constand eventually received $3.8 million. So then, well, I have been alone with him, but it wasn't like that. It was at a dinner with friends and at a restaurant. They asked, well, on the night of the incident, were you at his home? Were you guys out? I think we were out. I'm not sure. So again, the inconsistencies in her statement, not being able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that happened.
And then the three significant points why the defense felt that this was going to be either a mistrial or not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Number one, statute of limitations. We were able to prove that this did not happen in the time frame that they brought the trial against Mr. Cosby. It was proven by Tom Mesereau. The judge refused to give the jury instructions to say that the statute of limitations had ran out.
Because they could have ruled on that before even deliberating, and the whole trial could have been dismissed.
It could have been dismissed. Second one, Robert Russell, a guy in Canada, in Toronto, who dated Andrea Constand. And he smoked marijuana with her. They did drugs with her and her mother. The judge told us, we flew him in from Toronto, our investigators found him. He was going to speak to her talking about setting Mr. Cosby up because they hated black men. And this is a guy in Toronto, a white guy. The judge said, no, you can only ask him one question. You cannot ask him any questions related to her past because there's re-victimizing the victim. That's what the judge said. So this guy was only able to be asked, hey, did she want to be a journalist? And that's it. Third person, Bruce Castor. The judge refused to let us have Bruce Castor as a witness, the former DA.
Said he wasn't credible.
Said he wasn't credible. Now, this is the former DA. We later find out that the judge was having an affair with Bruce Castor's assistant district attorney, who's a magistrate now, today. And Bruce Castor ratted him out at that time, and that made Judge O'Neill lose the election.
These are explosive. And you're saying this live to the world.
To the world.
We've said it.
It's in our emotions. It's in our emotions.
In front of the courthouse.
Right.
We have said it in motions. It has been preserved through the courts. But again, when you have mainstream media, the AP, who was complicit in this conspiracy to set up Mr. Cosby and ruin his legacy, their job is to continue this story for their clickbait, for their sales, for whatever it is.
Now let me ask you
this. I want to jump in. I want to add one more component to it that another person that the judge would not allow us to come in. Steve Nash, who played with the Phoenix Suns. She was in a relationship with Steve Nash while he was married to his first wife. They didn't want that out there, so they would not let us call Steve Nash as a witness in this case.
And we were able to get Margot Jackson in on the second trial. She was barred from testifying in the first trial. He did give us that one, and even with her on the stand, the prosecution had the nerve to say, well, she's not credible. She's a woman. What she's saying, Margot Jackson, black woman, isn't credible. just because she said it, but Andrea Constand just because she said it is credible.
And Margot Jackson has been working at Temple University for 30 years. She's a sexual assault counselor on her second job. She has a master's degree in counseling, but she's not credible. Now, Margot Jackson was the roommate when they traveled, with the basketball team traveled with Andrea Constand. And Andrea Constand was watching on ABC News the heir to Max Factor, who had fled America for giving women date rape drugs to Mexico. And she said, that happened to me. Margot said, report it. Who did it? She said, nah, it didn't happen to me, but I could get a lot of money if I said so.
And they did not
And they
allow
barred
the person.
Margot
They
Jackson from
allowed
the
her
first
the
one, but
second
they let her
trial.
on the second trial, but they barred her from the first trial.
All right. I want to get, if you can answer this, because it's something you said that it would hurt Mr. Bill Cosby's legacy and what he has accomplished. And there are those that would say this is clearly to smear him and the like. And so respond to what you meant when you said that this is all about Mr. Cosby's legacy.
When you think about what Mr. Cosby has been able to accomplish in terms of giving an example to people that look like us of what we can aspire to, what he showed us on TV isn't what he came from. Everyone knows he came from the Richard Allen Projects. Everyone knew he lost a brother to violence as well. He grew up just like most of us did. He saw something different. It may not have been the direct way he did it, but he gave us something to aspire to. He is the one who encouraged black students to want higher education. He put money towards higher education, millions and millions and millions of dollars. When you start wanting to see your people elevated and you are passionate and honest about that, that's a real issue.
All right. Great. My guest is Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson. We are going live now on the air as well, and we're also on Facebook. So we thank you all for joining us in this conversation as we talk about the now incarcerated Bill Cosby. People are still trying to figure out and wrap their head around Bill Cosby is in prison minimally for 3 years. And when we come back as well, I wanted to talk about as we move forward, we know that there's the appellate documents. I don't know when they're going to be filed. I'm sure that some of the sentencing now, what has happened over the last couple of days, has to be included in that.
Correct.
And I want to talk about some of the issues that you all believe that are appealable,
Right.
that may be able to get Mr. Cosby out. The other piece is, just for the sake of being factual, in the event the appellate decisions don't go your way.
We go to the higher court, Supreme Court.
Okay. All right.
We're never stopping. This is so much bigger than Bill Cosby. This is about every black and brown young man in America. And we're fighting for them. And Mr. Cosby's fighting for them. And that's why he's at peace. That's why he walked up with his head upright. He wasn't bowed. He didn't give them the tears. None of us did. We were jovial because we understand one thing. They might have got what they wanted, but they gave us what we needed.
And there's no Willie Lynch going on around here. Ain't no breaking the buck.
Okay. All right. So we are live. It is the afternoon traffic jam. How much time do we have before we go on air? And you know, one of the questions I want to ask you, and we'll get to this as we get ready so you can answer it on the air. If he could have done anything different, don't answer this question yet. We're going to do that. I want to just give you a heads up. If he could have done anything different, what would he have done? I don't know if you would have asked that question. What level of accountability or maybe responsibility does he take in being in this place at this time?
We can answer that.
Right?
We can answer
We'd
All right.
love to answer that.
You love to answer that one? Great. Great.
30 seconds.
Philly's best R&B and throwbacks, 105.3 WDAS. We're the home of the Holiday Jam happening December 22nd at the Met Philadelphia. Listen, you can join us Facebook Live at WDAS. You can also go to WDASFM.com. Frankie Darcell with you, and I've got some tickets along the way for you. We'll do that, but it is good to have in the studio with me Mr. Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson of Purpose PR, the representatives for Mr. Bill Cosby. Good to have you both in the studio,
Frankie.
and people have seen both of you with Mr. Cosby over the last couple of years, quite frankly, since going through this. My question for you, if he could do anything different, meaning Mr. Cosby, or what level of accountability or responsibility, if any, does he take for being in this place at this time, if any?
Well, he's innocent, so there's nothing to be accountable and responsible for. Infidelity is not a crime. Everybody has their idiosyncrasies, and every man has their fallacies, right? But if that's the case, then, every man that we know of should be locked up, because we all have strayed outside of our situations.
Did it cost him $3.8 million?
Yes, it did. It cost him $3.8 million. But, at the end of the day, him and Mrs. Cosby, they addressed those issues back in 2005.
Only accountability that matters.
Right, and that's all that matters. Is him addressing it with his family, and the forgiveness was there between him and his family, and you move on.
All right. Ebonee, I wanted to talk to you really quickly as well, because you read Camille Cosby's statement, as like other high-profile women like Hillary Clinton, who stand by their high-profile men. I mean, let's look at the First Lady. Ms. Cosby wrote that letter that you read the other day. How is she feeling?
Again, Mrs. Cosby is the backbone of everybody. Mr. Cosby will tell you that. She is as strong as I have ever seen, graceful, smart, intelligent, and again, she knows her husband is innocent of sexual assault. Whatever happened between their marriage, whatever he did outside of their marriage, that's between them, and again, that's the only accountability that truly matters between them. If she has accepted that and decided to move on with her husband, that's her right.
All right. Ebonee Benson and Andrew Wyatt are my guests. Purpose PR, they're the representatives for the Cosby family. The phone lines are open, 215-263-1053, 877-894-1053. They have been gracious enough to take your phone calls as well. Join us on Facebook at WDAS-FM on Facebook, and, of course, the blog at WDASFM.com. Great conversation that we're having. Thank you both for being open and honest and having a no-holds-barred. Any question can be asked. Thank you so much. Up next, more Philly's best R&B and throwbacks. We're 105.3 DAS. So when we talked about the appealable issues, there are, I believe, how many?
30.
There are 30
plus, and what we were trying to do when they sentenced him, we held one of them because it's one of the biggest that we found. Well, what happened 3-4 weeks ago, Ebonee started doing research over the habeas corpus hearing with Castor. She asked me for the documents. I got them. She combed through the documents and she found what Castor said the tape wasn't legitimate.
Let's talk about that, because you made reference to that in the letter written by Camille Cosby.
Right, when she made the fine, none of our attorneys, we got all of these prominent attorneys, they never authenticated the tape. They never authenticated the tape that Gianna Constant recorded Mr. Cosby. On the tape, Mr. Cosby kept saying, he said, do you think I gave her a date rape drug? Gianna Constant's mother said, no, Bill, I don't think that way about you. You wouldn't dare drug Andrea. Andrea needs to get up off this sofa and she needs to go to work. She got fired from Temple. He said, well, let's figure out how we can help her. Then they erased that part of it. We had the tape authenticated 2 weeks ago.
By two experts.
Two experts. One agency in Virginia who authenticates tapes for the FBI. And they came back, the tape was tampered with in 4 locations. And you could hear someone using a recorder to record off of the tape and then cutting it off. So we brought that to the judge's attention. He should have immediately said, mistrial, I'm going to let him be remanded to house arrest through the appeals process based on his newfound evidence.
And in that letter written by Ms. Camille Cosby, I believe you did say in that there were 2 detectives who also said that they could not authenticate That was in the letter from Ms. Cosby. Is that what you said
It
at
is.
the day of sentencing?
I will confirm. The detectives from Montgomery County confirmed to our attorneys, Joe Green, that they do not have a chain of proof of where the tape came from, who gave them the tape, and they do not have the original tape.
All right. Now, also, was this tape used or recording used in the
was.
first and second trial?
was.
Yes, it was.
Heavily.
Used. Now, what you all found out later, Andrew, you said that that you all found out later, but it was used in the first and second trial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did the district attorney or prosecutor, Montgomery County prosecutor, did he know that? Did he have that information relative to the tape?
I want to say that he did, because in his press conference just the other day, when someone asked him about it, his response was, "Oh, that's all they've got?"
Yeah. He never said no. He has yet to deny that the tape has not been tampered with. He just
That
said
the tape has been tampered with, or he believed that it was never authenticated?
both. He has never denied it.
So the authentication came on the side of our attorneys.
Right.
So this is why I say this is a 4-part conspiracy. You have Mr. Cosby's attorneys, the one that passed away, Walter Phillips. They brought the charges once he had passed.
They waited.
They had no documentation, no signatures of Castor's promise, Phillips speaking to Mr. Cosby about what he was doing, nothing. So you have attorneys that are looking to make money. This is Bill Cosby. A man wants to save his life, okay? Then you have the district attorney. They know their case is weak. They have old allegations, no proof, no evidence, no hair fibers, no pee samples, nothing. You have nothing but someone's word, and because they said it. Then you have the plaintiff, the person who was making the allegations. They stand to make a lot of money. Then you have the media. They get to tell this story over and over and over until it dies. And it
billions
doesn't
of
die.
dollars off of
because
it.
even on his first night, they're posting about what he ate. My question was, are they going to talk about when he takes his first bowel movement? Is it that important to you, the fall of this man? You have to follow it to a T, which means you wanted to see this happen. This is a part of your entertainment.
This is the destruction of legacy. This is to make sure that no young black child coming up will see the Cosby Show and aspire to be something great. This is to have a formula to go after every black man in America. So the Michael Jordans of the world, watch out. President Obama, watch out. Jay-Z, watch out. They're coming for our powerful black men.
Let me ask you this. Because there were, and I don't even know what the number was, there were several, like 50, 60?
And I will address that.
And I can tell
50,
you.
60 accounts of some inappropriate behavior by Mr. Cosby, by 60 people. Some people would say where there's smoke, there has to be fire.
So I'll address that. When the allegations were originally brought, you have an attorney, Gloria Allred, that pretty much has built her career off of things in situations like this. After they had allegations that came out, had no evidence, had no proof, they started going out, putting out ads. One of the witnesses testified, Lisa Lott Lublin. I don't know what happened to me, but when I saw it flash across the screen, I knew that had to have happened to me. So you got people planting information, pretty much like the commercials where a big attorney comes on and say, if this has ever happened to you, please give us a call. We'll be able to help you get a settlement and a class action lawsuit. So you have Gloria Allred, who's looking basically to file some type of class action lawsuit to get this money, and then tells Mr. Cosby, Gloria Allred, if you give us $100 million, we'll make this all go away.
And that was in November 2014, LA Times.
And that's as the numbers are growing.
She's doing a press conference, and she said, Bill Cosby, you give me $100 million, and I will not bring another woman out. And what she was able to do, she paraded out a bunch of white women, and she sprinkled in a few black women. I said it was a salt and pepper shaker. And she sprinkled it in to make it look believable.
But did Mr. Cosby have relationships with these white women?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He's
he hasn't
never
denied that.
not being with these women.
But these are women who are scorned. These are women who, as he told me, he said, Andrew, I never told them I loved them. I never discussed my marriage with them. And I never helped advance their careers.
So I guess he admits to being a philanderer.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
He admits to having
And
a lot
he
of
was
women.
the biggest name.
Was he with all the women?
In the way that
give
they
me
said,
give me a number if you can. I mean, it
I
just
can't.
comes to mind.
I can't
But this
throughout
is
his career.
Okay, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So what you are saying is that a number of women, white women, with a few black women sprinkled in,
Right.
he did have affairs with.
He did have affairs with, and he has
and
not
spent
denied.
some time with.
And spent time
because
with.
again, each situation, each woman isn't describing a sexual experience and
Right.
penetration. Just for me to be clear about that. Some of these accounts, some of these alleges are that, well, I was sitting there and then he had his penis on my leg, or he rubbed my hair and it made me feel uncomfortable. He rubbed my thigh and it made me feel. So it's every situation is not a relationship. Now, did he spend time with each of these women? Yes. Each of them were not relationships, and each of them were not sex.
And one woman even said that he, after a tennis match with Arthur Ashe, he walked in a building and he touched her butt by mistake, and that was sexual assault. So, it's just absurd that this man, Bill Cosby, in the 60s, at the height of the civil rights movement, when he was on the FBI watch list because he refused to perform at the White House for Nixon. So he was put on the FBI watch list. They were watching him. And you mean to tell me in the 60s, at the height of the Ku Klux Klan, Bill Cosby was raping women and the Klan didn't pick him up from his door, out his bed and say, hey, come go with me? Wasn't that way. This is a lynching no different than Emmett Till. When the white woman comes and say, I want to meet God now, so it never happened.
In terms of Gloria Allred, you brought her up. Is there some other civil cases that may be pending?
Yeah,
there are some civil cases that are pending, right?
We have a civil case with her in two in L.A., Judy Huff and Janice Dickinson. Janice is represented by Lisa Bloom, her daughter. We have a total of 7 civil cases by Joseph Camerata in the Massachusetts area. That have been put on hold, but those cases are at stay right now, and we don't have any information on it because we haven't been focused. We're focusing mainly on the criminal aspect of it.
All right. So moving forward, as of today, what are next steps for Mr. Cosby and his team?
Well, next steps is to file a motion. We're working on a motion, filing it to get him out on bail. Now, that motion has to go before the same judge who refused to recuse himself twice. First, by his wife being a sexual assault professor and helping to get Mr. Cosby's degrees rescinded, honorary degrees. He sat over his own recusal motion and said no. The second one is him in the affair with the ADA for Bruce Castor. He sat on that recusal motion and said no. So we're going to file a motion. It goes before him. He can take his time up to 120 days to rule. We feel that he's going to try to deny it. So the goal is to go to the appellate court as well and try to get him out on bail. And so he could be at home, remanded to house arrest through the appeals process.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is costing as well. There was some conversation after the sentencing, and there were a boatload of interviews on this past week. But $25,000 fine is what Mr. Cosby was responsible.
What Mr. Steele asked for, he requested a $25,000 fine and for Mr. Cosby to pay for security and the entire court costs. And the judge denied the security and court costs, but $25,000 fine over a 12-month period.
Mm-hmm. All right, because even moving forward, a guesstimate, this has cost Mr. Cosby quite a bit.
Well, probably about between $10 and $15 million.
All right,
over a 2-year period. You know, just going to trials. But when you look, this has been going on for 34 months, between $10 and $15 million.
Mr. Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson is my guest. We're going to take a couple more phone calls. They are representing Purpose PR, and they are the spokespersons for Bill Cosby and Dr. Camille Cosby. Listen,
and
even as I was saying that, and the family, and I have to say this, because even as it's coming out of my mouth and we're reshaping the conversation, and initially it was for Dr. Bill Cosby. They stripped him of those degrees. So I'm thinking, okay, so I'm going to say, well, Mr. Bill Cosby, but they stripped him of some of those.
Well, he's still a doctor because he has a doctor in education from
yeah,
the University of
an earned degree.
Yes,
Him and Mrs. Cousins from the
Right.
University of Massachusetts Amherst.
Right.
They earned their doctorate in education.
How did Dr. Cosby feel about that? Even Temple University. I would
Oh.
love to know if you
Every
can.
time I
that
would-
Dr. How did they feel about the number of recognitions and honorary degrees and how much money came back with some of the degrees? That's what I want to know.
And I was waiting
Okay,
on that.
can I just keep it? How much money came back with the degrees?
Nobody gave a dime back. But his joke, he said, but they're still hanging on my wall. He said, he said, but they could. He said, look, I would call them up. I said, hey, he said, which one they have taken now? I said, well, Temple, Hampton, whatever college they had taken one back. He said, oh, okay. Let me go to my drawer. I think they're still there. No one has broken into my home. But they didn't give any money back. Not one dime back. You want to rescind him. But what you cannot rescind is the people that love and care about him and support him. You can't rescind that. And the media has made us think that the masses hate Bill Cosby, that he's not loved anymore, he's not beloved anymore, he's not America's dad. They put that halo over his head. He didn't ask to be America's dad.
But he did benefit from it.
Of course he did.
And to answer your question, how they felt about it is this is a part of it. Mm-hmm. When someone is setting out to destroy your legacy, this is what comes with it. They are going to strip you of everything. They're going to strip you down. And again, that's to break your spirit. That's to get this remorse that they're looking for something you didn't do.
Yeah. I just want to say, to put a pinhole in this, Bernard, we're going to go to line one. But there were a number of degrees we sent it, but no one sent the money back.
Nobody sent the money back. It's amazing.
And so we're talking about how much. Well, I just think if you're going to take the person's degree and you believe that the name or such shouldn't be on there, I think the money should have come back.
Frank, I tell you
with
what,
it. Because it's all the same thing. It's like taking. Listen, I'm just going to listen. As a sidebar, it's if you think the drug dealer should go to jail, do you keep the drug dealer's money? I'm just saying.
They keep it in evidence.
They keep it in evidence.
And then they use it.
to fuel another case.
To catch the next drug.
So here's what I'm going to say to every college and university on your show. Send the money back, and we will divide it to some of the Frankie's favorite funds.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
And we're gonna help some people in the black community.
Wow.
So let's do it right now. If you want to send a check back, and we will make sure the money goes.
That's
to Frankie's
I
funds.
want to say one thing. Yeah. Right now, what the media is attempting to do, they've had these experts on now because now he's been deemed violent predator. And now to take it a step beyond that, they want to say that he's mentally ill and now can't control his sexual urges. So again, it's to continue to demean him and who he is. This was a consensual relationship, and now you're a sexually violent predator. And then you're going to say he's mentally ill. No one has done an evaluation.
Well, he refused to allow the state psychologists to be evaluated. The legal experts I spoke to said if he were their client, he would not have allowed their client to interview because there would have been a number of admissions. So I'm just saying from some of the attorneys
that would have come back to hurt him in the civil case.
And the
appeal case is different than a sexual assessment, a sexual predator assessment. So now to say that he's mentally ill, again, you're just trying to continue to paint this picture of this man who has fallen from this place to this place. The only thing that is wrong with Mr. Cosby is he cannot see.
And then I want to point back on to these 3 psychologists that they brought in between the first and the second trial. All white women who make money off accusing black men of sexual predators. All white
Is
women.
it that simple? Is it that simple, Andrew? All white. There are all white women that they came in.
These are 3 white women.
Yeah.
And when they asked them how many cases they sat over, and how many cases they sat over with all black men, how many convictions do you think you helped got? 15 plus. That's what these 3 psychologists said who testified on behalf of the prosecution.
All right, so let's go to the phone line. So we're going to line number 1. Milton is on from South Jersey. Hello, Milton. Thank you for your phone call. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good. Say hello to my guests, Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson.
How you doing, Andrew? Hello, Ebonee.
How you doing, Milton?
Good. Your question or comment?
I have a quick question. Yeah, I'm not really all that concerned about whether or not, Bill Cosby was unfaithful to his wife. But what I'm trying to find out is, do they really believe that he didn't drug any of those women? Because regardless of who he is, even if he only drugged one of them, he should go to jail.
He did not even drug Andrea Constant. 1.5 Benadryl is not drugging anyone. The recommended dose by the FDA is not even is actually more than 1.5 Benadryl. So when we use the word drugging, we have to be really careful about what we're saying.
And Benadryl is an over-the-counter medication that doesn't make you lethargic. And also, veterinarians require when your dog gets bit in an ant bed, you give them Benadryl. I give my dog Benadryl, especially even when a storm is coming, to calm him down. So Benadryl doesn't make you lethargic. It doesn't make you incapacitated. It doesn't make you forget your name or forget the people around you.
And it doesn't render you paralyzed.
All right. Going to line 2, Darnetta of North Philadelphia. Darnetta, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Good.
Hello. Frankie,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much. Say hello to my guests, Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson.
Hello, Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson.
How you doing, Darnetta?
I am fine. I just want to say that I'm inspired. Thank you guys so much for being in full support of Mr. Cosby. Keep your head up. And God is with you guys, and he's also with Mr. Cosby, and I believe the appeal will go through.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And Mr. Cosby feels that conversation that statement you just made. He feels it right now.
All right, great. We go to line 3. Jerry is in Northeast Philadelphia, and his question, I believe it is he prepared to do minimally 10 years? Jerry, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. Say hello to my guests.
Hello, guests.
How you doing?
Good. Your comment, your question or your comment?
My comment is, I hope that he's prepared to do 10 years, because in the state of Pennsylvania, when you get 3 to 10, it's a privilege to get out at 3 years. But if you're not admitting that you did anything wrong, it's a big possibility that he's going to get parole hits every time he go up. So I hope his lawyers are working real hard to get him out, because Bill's going to end up doing, he's not going to do 3 years. That's definite, because he already said he didn't do it. And they got him in a bad situation. I hope, I did 10 years myself. My sentence was 6 to 20. I didn't get out until 10 years. And
he is prepared. We definitely understand how Pennsylvania law works and how it is not in the favor of people that look like us. So he's prepared to be there as long as his team is out here continuing to fight. And as you guys know, he does have Peter Goldberger, the appellate attorney, on his side, and that is the attorney that helped McMill to gain success here in Pennsylvania as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think I hear you, and I commend you for being he's in there now. He's in there now, and his attorneys and all of us. That's why we're out here fighting out every day, putting the truth out, putting the facts out, because the true fact finders did not do a good job and did not want the public to know what was actually going on, and that he didn't actually do these horrible things that he's accused of.
And it took Mandela longer.
Great.
Right.
Jerry, thank you so much for your phone call. I appreciate it.
thank you.
One of the questions that people ask, we've got one more break coming up. We've got about another 8 or so minutes. Thank you for your time.
No, we
Thank
have
you for
all
coming.
the
Yeah,
time.
all the time.
We just
Thank
wanna
you.
hang-
Thank you. Just want to hang out.
Very southern right now. We do not have all this.
Okay.
Well, no. They said that they were going to bring some soul food in.
Oh, right. Dr. Cosby is now a convicted felon until otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
He is 81 years old
And blind.
and blind. And he is now in the hands of the Pennsylvania Correctional Institution, the state of Pennsylvania. How is he? There are those that would say at 81 and his age. Physically, we know that he's blind and that, but how is he, and how do you think you've been in his company, you've talked with him.
Well, he's in great health. I'm
Okay,
talking about
in terms of his health, to be able to endure.
Right. Yeah, they've never had doctors. They only have Chinese herbalists. They do acupuncture.
This is Dr. Cosby and Dr.
and Mrs.
Cosby.
They're herbal supplements. Doesn't take any medication. They don't believe in it.
But this right here.
But the brain is so, his mind is so strong, and it's hard to break him. And he deals with everything through humor. Look, he has lost a son, Ennis Cosby, and a daughter. His daughter passed this year, Insa, and she was due a kidney transplant from her older sister, Erin, last year during the trial, and she got sick and couldn't get the transplant. She wasn't strong enough, and she was supposed to get one this year, and she passed away. And I was on the phone with him when Mrs. Cosby texted me and said, I had just flew from New York to Chicago. And she said, Mr. Wyatt, it's 9 o'clock at night, Central Time, while I was in Chicago. Insa is not going to make it. I'm on my way to see her now. And he called and talked to me on the phone, and Mrs. Cosby would give him updates every 30 minutes and said, Billy, she's leaving us. She's leaving us. And they buried those two kids on their property in Massachusetts. And what's so interesting now is that I get a call from a detective in Los Angeles the day that he was sentenced, saying that Ennis's murderer is up for clemency. So
this is why we talk about a bigger conspiracy. This just didn't start with this woman. This started with destroying a name. He has no one to carry on his last name. They took his son after him trying again to make things better for people that look like us. Also trying to go forward and purchase certain entities, certain things. 5 years later, his son is murdered.
Tried to purchase NBC, tried to purchase the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, years later, he's now facing charges. The day he's sentenced, now we find out his son's murderer is up for clemency.
It says a lot. It shows. I know America don't believe in conspiracies, or across the pond they do. But when you look at a man like Bill Cosby, who owns, they have one of the largest African American art collections in the world, who owns the properties that they own. This is a guy who won Westminster Dog Show twice. He won with Awesome Blossom of Lakeland Terrier and Harry the Danny Denmark Terrier. A black man, called himself the Black Watchers because they wouldn't let black people enter into Westminster Dog Show. Look what he has done with the Cosby Show.
I got to tell you, because even in covering this topic, there were people that would say, he tried to buy a network and they didn't like it, and he tried to do this and they didn't like it. That has some credibility?
It has a lot of credibility because it's like coming on a drug dealer's block.
So how do you tie in these women? How do you get women who have said they were assaulted, with great respect to the women who said that they were assaulted? You're suggesting this is all a conspiracy, and that the women who said that they have been assaulted all have gotten together with some other people.
I feel that it's a planned conspiracy with Comcast, who owns NBC, because even at the trial, NBC flew all of these women in on their dime, provided handlers for these women, gave them money, treated them like they were celebrities' black cars. We witnessed this. Mr. Cosby had been with William Morris for 50 years. They knew everything about him. They knew about the women that he was seeing. They kept paperwork on all of this stuff. And he helped William Morris rebound. He saved NBC 5 or 6 times from bankruptcy and tried to buy them. When you're a black man in America with that type of power and wealth, they are going to try to take you down. Look what they did to Michael. They come after all our black iconic figures who try to humanize all races, all religions, and all genders. That's a problem in America for a black man.
What is it, Ebonee, that, and I think we're going to have this next break coming up in just a few minutes. What is it that you want America to know that we don't know?
About this case, or just in the one thing that I feel America doesn't quite understand is the Commonwealth had a theory, just like a thesis paper. When you write your thesis paper, you make a statement, right? And their statement is Bill Cosby is this. You go and you find examples and then you use your sources. But you don't take everything from that to put it in your paper. You find what you need that validates what you're trying to say. So I think what some people don't understand from this is that's exactly how they designed this. It's a thesis paper with examples that point to what they said. Oh, he said he used Quaaludes. But did you guys research what Quaaludes actually do to people? One, they said he gave them blue pills. Well, did you research that Quaaludes are not even blue? No? Okay. Well, they were small, round, and blue. Did you research that Quaaludes are large and white? No, we didn't. So I feel like America misses so many parts of the story because information is given in a certain way, and it's designed to be given that way in order to achieve a certain goal. And in this case, this goal was to destroy his legacy.
Mr. Wyatt,
Question?
what is it that you want us to know?
Well, I want you to understand and know that, as I said earlier, this is so much bigger than Bill Cosby. That right now you could be in a crowded room and you could walk past a young lady and brush up against her, and that sexual assault, you touch her butt. Want you to understand that, you know, in this case, they're saying that basically women don't lie, that all women are truthful. We all have a tendency to lie. But I want people to really understand is that we have to protect our black boys and our brown boys every day. Education is the key. Don't stop, you know, trying to get out of your situation to make it better. And that's what Mr. Cosby taught all of us, that the revolution is in the home. Mm-hmm. And the revolution is, you know, not in the streets, but in the home. Mm-hmm. We need our parents to be more active. Mm-hmm. In our children's lives and in the school system, and that's what Mr. Cosby was all about. And I don't want people to forget that. Mm-hmm. Our job and our goal is restoring. That's what we're out here doing. It's like restoring a painting. Mm-hmm. We're just restoring his legacy by reminding people of who he is, who he was, and who he will continue to be. You have a show called Orange is the New Black. The new show will be Black is the New Orange.
Wow. All right, so we're going to go live in just a few minutes, and then we will come back as well. We have how much time before the next break? And we're going to clearly continue the conversation as well. Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson of Purpose PR are my guests. We've got about a minute and 30 seconds going in to the next Stop Set live on the air. Of course, we are Facebook Live as well, and we're going to be going live on the air in about 60 seconds. Then we'll take just a short break, and of course we will be back as well. We have been going for 1 hour and 12 minutes straight. Wow. Thank you, though. I wanted to give you something short of something longer, not short of the 30-second, 45-second soundbite. And to give our audience as well, we have a boatload of comments on our Facebook page as well, and because I don't have my glasses, I can't see them. So I'm gonna get my glasses.
Frankie, here you go.
Thank you very much. It's good I do that.
Do they help, Frankie?
No, they don't. We're gonna take a 35-second break after this next break. And I will get my glasses, but we're going to answer as many questions. Thank you both for being accommodating to our audience as well. I wanted to hear your full commentary and your comments about moving forward, and it's gonna take some time.
And Frankie, we needed this. We needed this opportunity. We haven't, believe it or not, we represent Bill Cosby. We haven't had an opportunity like this. The media has always tried to cut us short, so we appreciate you for having us on, and the Cosby family appreciate you. And Mrs. Cosby told me to personally tell you thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, okay, I got it. What I'm going to say, I'm going to say off the record to that. but great, thank you so much. And what we want to do is, am I almost live? Oh, great, here we go, we're live. Philly's best R&B and throwbacks at 105.3 WDAS. We're the home of the Holiday Jam. It is happening at the Met Philadelphia. I am so glad to have in the studio with me Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson of Purpose PR. We are live on Facebook and our blog as well. Thank you, Philly, for the phone calls and the questions. Thank you both to Andrew and Ebonee as well. They have been answering the questions. If you're just joining us, if I can, this description at sentencing, Ebonee, you were the PR representative that read the letter from Ms. Camille Cosby. And Andrew, you're often seen with Mr. Cosby as well, with him and you guiding him in and out of the courtroom. For people who are listening right now, Mr. Cosby, 81 years old. He is now, at best, 3 to 10 years. Physically, how is he ready to deal with what is in front of him?
Look, he as he told me, he's built for this. He said that he's designed for this. He has been preparing for this. God put this in his future. And he said, now we have to deal with it. And the goal is to show people that if they can get Bill Cosby, no one that looks like Bill Cosby is safe. No one that looks like us. Every black man, black boy, brown is can be brought into the judicial system because it's a black and white system.
All right. Ebonee, I wanted to ask you as well, you read the letter from Ms. Cosby, and if you could just, it was a very passionate letter. She wrote it herself. You happened to read it. And how is she doing?
She's doing great. This is actually her second statement that I read. I read her first statement last year after the hung jury, and then I read this one as well. She is a very passionate woman, and I take it as an honor every time I'm able to speak her words because I believe in what she's saying. Due process doesn't look like this. Justice does not look like this. So she's doing great. She's prepared for this fight. So is Mr. Cosby. One thing people have to understand is they come from a totally different generation. They come from the era where civil rights was at its greatest and at its most epic points. So this is just another testament to their strength. And this just, for them, civil rights never ended.
All right.
It continues.
All right. 215-263-1053 is the number. 877-894-1053 is the number. We want to talk to you and more Philly's best R&B and throwbacks next. We call it the FC Corvette Cadillac commercial-free commute, where we don't stop going 90 minutes. We're 105.3 DAS. Okay, let's take 30. Let's stop the Box Pro. Let's stop here. Let's just take 30.
Okay.
Get a breather. If you want some water. I just need some water.
Hard moment to see him like that because I know who he is. So it was all right.
And she mentioned we would be in the car, and she always sat in the passenger seat, and she turned around to him, see him taking home again, and we would play Al Green, and he was singing and still in love again, and I tell everybody walking him in, it was an honor, a pleasure. But this is a man who gave me a dog, a beautiful show dog. I tell everybody I walk with him every day. I never forget for my birthday last year, he turned 80 years old. He said, Andrew, black man don't need a watch, so he gave me his watch. And so I walk with him every day with this watch on my arm, and this keeps me in the fight. He's not just a friend, fraternity brother, but he's a father. He taught me my ABCs on the electric company while I was a kid in the projects. So yeah.
Was wrongly incarcerated.
So when you see
this
that,
is real for me.
So
it doesn't begin with Mr. Cosby and it doesn't end with Mr. Cosby for me. So it's.
So when you see it, and when I've been with him so long, for 8 years, and I've been through the good and the great, and now the bad.
Yeah.
And we don't waver, we don't leave.
Yeah. All right, so we'll be back. First of all, let me take an opportunity. Are we still on?
We're on Instagram.
Oh, great. Hi, Instagram. Let me just say for those that are watching on Instagram, thank you, Mr. Wyatt.
Andrew.
No, Mr. Wyatt. Right?
Andrew Wyatt, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wyatt.
We're like family now, so we first name. You call me Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Frankie.
I appreciate that. And Ebonee, thank you. I was like, did I do that wrong? 'Cause I gotta tell you, anybody that knows me well knows that I will stomp on a name until I get to it. So thank you both for taking every question, not only from me and my audience. Thank you to NBC 10 for coming in and covering it. I also want to say hello to Monica of the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, who is in the studio with us.
Nice to meet you.
As one, well, just one of the premier papers here in the city of Philadelphia, and know that I asked because I want to talk to the people at the table. So when I'm doing the topics and I'm covering headlines, which airs on Sunday, I want to hear from those people who are at the table making the decision, so there's no question as to what the legitimacy is, not just because I read somebody else's story and I had to interpret those stories. So thank you for coming in and speaking on behalf of Mr. Cosby of the Cosby family. Thank you. Thank you.
We thank you, and at the end of the day, God has this, and He gives us the strength every day, and we just ask everybody to keep praying, and as long as you keep praying, we will feel it, and we will keep fighting.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. We're 105.3 WDAS.